Wow, that was really deep. Hi, everyone, and particularly hi, Ren. Okay, that's so lame. Anyway, can you guess what video I'm gonna be reacting to today? This one has been really highly requested on the channel. It's Hi Ren by Ren. I'm really excited to check it out. I am afraid to admit that I'm actually not that familiar with Ren or, his music, and I've heard really great stories about his videos though, and that they're supposed to be real pieces of art. So I'm really excited to kind of check it out. In case you're new to the channel here, my name is Manon. I'm a filmmaker. I have been working in and around the film industry for about the past 10 years or so. I actually used to own and run a film magazine for about 7 years, and that was a really, really fantastic experience. And since then, I've gone into filmmaking myself, and that's why I still love taking this analytical approach, because that's what I used to do for the film magazine. So I just love movies, I love music, and for me, music video is the beautiful blend of the two. Anyway, so that's what I talk about. I don't necessarily get into the music or the lyrics too much. I really look at the visuals and how they come together and make the beautiful package that we know and love. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into Ren.
Hi there, Ren. It's been a little while. Did you miss me? You thought you buried me, didn't you? Risky. Cause I always come back. Deep down, you know that. Deep down, you know I'm always in periphery. Ren, on your pleased to see me. It's been weeks since we spoke, bro. I know you need me. You're the sheep, I'm the shepherd. Not your place to lead me. Not your place to be biting off the hand that feeds me.
Hi, Ren. I've been taking some time to be distant. I've been taking some time to be still. I've been taking some time to be by myself since my therapist told me I'm ill. And I've been making some progress lately, and I've learned some new coping skills. So I haven't really needed you much, man. I think we need to just step back and chill.
Ren, you sound more insane than I do. You think that those doctors are really there to guide you? Been through this a million times. Your civilian mind is so perfect at always being lied to. Okay, take another pill, boy. Drown yourself in the sound of white noise. Follow this 10-step program, rejoice. All your problems will be gone. Fucking dumb boy.
Nah, mate. This time is different, man. Trust me. I feel like things might be falling in place. And my music's been kinda doing bits too. Like I actually might do something great. And when I'm gone, maybe I'll be remembered for doing something special with myself. That's why I don't think that we should talk, man. Cause when you're with me, it never seems to help.
You think that you can amputate me? I am you, you are me, you are I am we are one. Split in two, that makes one, so you see. You gotta kill you if you wanna kill me. I'm not leftover dinner, I'm not scraps on the side. Oh, your music is thriving, delusional guy. Where's your top 10 hit? Where's your interview with Oprah? Where are your Grammys, Ren? Nowhere.
Yeah, but my music's not commercial like that. I never chase numbers, statistics or stats. I never write hooks for the radio, they never even play me, so why would I concern myself with that? But my music is really connecting, and the people who find it respect it. And for me that's enough, cause this life's been tough, so it gives me a purpose I can rest in.
Man, you sound so pretentious. Ren, your music is so self-centered. No one wants to hear another song about how much you hate yourself.
Trust me.
You should be so lucky, having me inside you to guide you, remind you to manage expectations, provide you perspective. That thing you neglected, I get it.
Okay, That was not what I was expecting it to be at all. How interesting. So this is very different from what I normally cover, but apparently, there's some overlap between the metal community and REN's community, I guess, because there was a lot of people who requested this. And it's really beautiful. What an interesting song. It's like he's having a dialogue with himself, or like the evil and the good on the shoulder, the angel and the devil. And what an interesting setting too. So he basically is just in this one room. But what is interesting is that, okay, so he's being carted onto the scene by this guy with this creepy pig's head. And there's something creepy going on. It feels like he's in an asylum, right? That's kind of, I'm guessing, the aesthetic that they're going for him in this hospital gown and on the wheelchair as well, which is, there's some graffiti on it, looks dingy. It's like he's in one of those old abandoned mental hospitals. I personally really love the aesthetic of anything, abandoned. I've actually shot quite a bit of footage. I'm working on like a sort of artistic project that is sort of like a multi-year project where I'm shooting footage in abandoned places around the world. So I love going into these places, and the creepier and shittier they look, to be honest, like the more I love them. So I love the aesthetic of this. So in terms of like what they're doing filmmaking wise, it's also quite interesting to really emphasize on this back and forth, that he's having this dialogue. I'm fairly sure that they have 3 cameras going at the same time, because we keep cutting back and forth between 3 perspectives. And I'm guessing from what this looks like, they didn't do too many takes of this either. It looks like it's just one sitting and he's doing the performance. And that's also what I heard. People said it was a one take or a one shot. So people said that it's a one shot. What I associate with a one shot and what filmmakers associate with a one shot is that basically you film everything with just one camera and you do not cut. So all of the action that takes place is very carefully choreographed and you have the one camera. Now, this may have been one take, so they had 3 cameras rolling at the same time, but it was not a one shot because we have multiple cameras and they are cutting between them. So a little bit of lingo maybe mixed up there. So I was expecting something a little bit different. That's fine because it's still pretty beautiful and interesting to look at. Good examples of a one-shot film would be Ruben Östlund's first film. He's now very famous for films like The Square, Force Majeure, and more recently, The Triangle of Sadness. So one of his very first films was a short film. Anyway, the film is called Incident by a Bank, and I don't know if it's available. If I can find it, I will link it. But it's basically one shot, and he basically choreographed an entire bank heist just from that shot. It's a 12-minute video, so you can imagine the amount of choreography that went into it. It's really, really interesting. And so that would be a good example. Another example that looks like a one-shot film, but isn't, is Birdman, the 2014, I think, film, where basically Iñárritu did not film it as a one-shot. However, it was edited to look like it. So everything was extremely carefully placed to make it seem as if it was just one person, with a steady cam just following the actors all the way through. But it wasn't. So there's ways to do it. Now, on my last project, I did see them, this one, Cross Ace, I did see them do a one shot. It's really quite hard because the choreography is quite extensive. And everything and everyone has to get it exactly right at the same time. So for example, you have your actors who have to hit their marks at the exact correct time. The camera operator has to be wherever, they need to be at the correct time. Your focus pullers need to pull focus at the exact correct time. So there's a lot of really careful orchestration there. So it's really quite hard. So those are some good examples of one-shot films. So we basically only have a couple of lights here, which makes it so interesting to look at. There is a big, really bright light coming from the top here, which is casting a light on his, we'll just call it his right side here. And then we have this one here, which is, casting the light here and is causing this shadow. Then we have this small light, which is not, lighting him too much because most of the light is coming from here. However, what is so fascinating is that each of these lights are basically they're flickering on and off, but basically they sort of represent each of the sides, I think, that is having the dialogue. So one switches off when the other is talking and vice versa. And what's interesting is that he is not really lit from the front very much at all, which you can basically see in these shots, where now you can see that we have the bright light coming from here and we have the light from the back, but we don't have much light at all in the front. So we don't actually see his face too well, which is a really interesting choice because part of him is still obscured while he's having these really, he's holding this really personal dialogue, monologue, right? And he's playing. Now, I have a question for you, the viewer, who is more familiar with REN. He seems to be wearing a lav mic and his guitar seems to be amplified. So he's not actually performing this live, right? Because it says it's the official music video. It doesn't say that this is a, live one take or something, you know what I mean? If it's not, why is it there? So I'm kind of curious of what the idea is behind that because I can't quite place that choice quite yet, but maybe, we'll be enlightened.
Expectations provide you perspective. That thing you neglected, I get it. You wanna be a big deal. Next Jimi Hendrix, forget it.
Man, it's not like that.
Man, it's just like that. I'm inside you, you twat.
No, it's not, man, you're wrong. When I write, I belong.
Let me break the fourth wall by acknowledging this song.
Ren sits down, has a stroke of genius.
He wants to write a song that was not done previous. A battle with the subconscious. Eminem did it.
Played on guitar.
Plan B did it.
Man, you're not original, you criminal rip-off artist. The pinnacle of your success is stealing other people's material.
Ren, mate, we've heard it all before. She sells seashells on the seashore.
Fuck you, I don't need you, I don't need to hear this. Cause I'm fine by myself, I'm a genius. And I will be great, and I will make waves. And I'll shake up the whole world beneath us.
That's right, speak your truth, your fucking god complex leaks out of you. It's refreshing to ask for you, say it instead of downplay it.
Music is all about the creative process, and if people can find something to relate to within that, then that's just a bonus.
Fuck you, I'ma fucking kill you, Ren.
Well, fucking kill me then, let's fucking have you, Ren.
I'ma do it, watch me prove it. Who are you to doubt my music? Cause I call the shots, I choose if you die. Yeah, I call the shots and so I choose who survives. I'll tie you up in knots when I lock you inside. Newsflash, I was created at the dawn of creation. I am temptation. I am the snake in Eden. I am the reason for treason, beheading all kings. I am sin, with no rhyme or reason. Son of the morning, Lucifer, Antichrist, father of lies. Mephistophelies, truth in a blender, deceitful pretender, the banished avenger, the righteous surrender. When standing in front of my solar eclipse, my name is stitched to your lips. So you see, I won't bow to the will of a mortal, feeble and normal. You wanna kill me? I'm eternal immortal. I live in every decision that catalyzes chaos, that causes division. I live inside death, the beginning of end. I am you, you are me, I am you, Ren.
Hi, Ren. I've been taking some time to be distant. I've been taking some time.
Interesting. As the music's intensifying, the lights started flashing more and more, which is so fitting and fits really well with the music. And then we had a slow, what looked like a dolly zoom. I doubt they actually had a dolly there, but the camera was moving ever so slightly forward. or they actually zoomed in very carefully, or that was done in post. That's kind of three possibilities on how to make it seem as if you're moving in. And then they went back out, right? So we were getting up close with him, and then we moved back. And again, it really fits with the story that he's telling. And I feel like he's telling more of a story with the music than it really being a song in a way. Does that make sense? I don't know. I'm trying to define what this is because it's really quite interesting, very different. I like it. And now we're about 5 minutes in, so sort of I guess we're heading towards the final act of the song, if you will, because it is a little bit set up like with a story structure to it. And interestingly, what I'm noticing is that while we were on what we would call on sticks before, as in the camera was static, it was sitting on a tripod, it was sitting still, right? And now, all of a sudden, we're handheld. So you see ever so slight movement in the camera. And so I'm expecting that there's going to be some sort of probably like further mental decline or something, because that's kind of what this whole space is sort of signaling and symbolizing to me. And usually the shaky camera or a handheld camera is kind of used to symbolize and sort of emphasize mental unwellness in film.
Time to be still. I've been taking some time to be by myself, and I've spent half my life ill. But just as sure as the tide starts turning, just as sure as the night has dawned, just as sure as the rainfall soon runs dry when you stand in an eye of a storm. I was made to be tested and twisted. I was made to be broken and beat. I was made by his hand, it's all part of his plan that I stand on my own 2 feet. And you know me, my will is eternal. And you know me, you've met me before. Face to face with a beast, I will rise from the east and I'll settle on the ocean floor. And I go by many names also. Some people know me as hope. Some people know me as the voice that you hear when you loosen the noose on the rope. And you know how I know that I'll prosper? 'Cause I stand here beside you today. I have stood in the flames that cremated my brain, and I didn't once flinch or shake. So care of the man I've become when I sing from the top of my lungs, that I won't retire, I'll stand in your fire, inspire that me to be strong. And when I am gone I will rise in the music that I left behind. Ferocious, persistent, immortal like you, we're a coin to different sides. When I was 17 years old, I shouted out into an empty room, into a blank canvas, that I would defeat the forces of evil. And for the next 10 years of my life, I suffered the consequences, with autoimmunity, illness, and psychosis. As I got older, I realized there were no real winners and there were no real losers in psychological warfare, but there were victims and there were students. It wasn't David versus Goliath. It was a pendulum, eternally swaying from the dark to the light. And the more intensely that the light shone, the darker the shadow it cast. It was never really a battle for me to win. It was an eternal dance. And like a dance, the more rigid I became, the harder it got. The more I cursed my clumsy footsteps, the more I struggled. So I
I'm gonna pause it here for a second. That was really fascinating. So he, it does intensify, and we get way closer with him as, you know, the music gets more no, not upbeat, but like intense. Yeah, it's more intense. And we have a lot more camera movement. And it's interesting because we actually saw some of the lights. So we see that it's not just this light behind him, but that there is another one of these really strong lights on the left side of the screen as well. So that's really cool. But it's still really interesting to me that that's all the lighting that they have here, because again, like he remains so darkly lit in his face. And here too, like all of these shots where we get really close to him, we could still barely see his eyes. Even though like he's so expressive in his face, it's an interesting choice. I don't know if that was because they had, certain restrictions to shooting in this place. Like maybe there wasn't a lot of space to rig more lights. Maybe they didn't have more lights. I don't know. I'm curious why they made that choice. But on the other hand, if it is a creative choice, it's really interesting because it does cast all of these really fascinating shadows for sure. It's like it really amplifies that starkness and that back and forth that he is doing in this narrative song almost, right? Like it feels like old school theater almost. Very cool. Okay, so, and also he got up. So along with, what's happening in this game of lights, he is also getting up, which is also adding to the amplification, to the intensification of this song as well.
When I was 17 years old, I shouted out into an empty room, into a blank canvas, that I would defeat the forces of evil. And for the next 10 years of my life, I suffered the consequences, with autoimmunity, illness, and psychosis. As I got older, I realized there were no real winners and there were no real losers in psychological warfare, but there were victims and there were students. It wasn't David versus Goliath. It was a pendulum, eternally swaying from the dark to the light. And the more intensely that the light shone, the darker the shadow it cast. It was never really a battle for me to win. It was an eternal dance. And like a dance, the more rigid I became, the harder it got. The more I cursed my clumsy footsteps, the more I struggled. So I got older, and I learned to relax. And I learned to soften, and that dance got easier. It is this eternal dance that separates human beings from angels, from demons, from gods. And I must not forget, we must not forget, that we are human beings.
Wow. That was really deep. I mean, what else can I say? There's not much for me to say from the filmmaker's perspective other than these beautiful flares that we're seeing, these beautiful flares from the lights coming from the right. It's so dark, his face is so poorly lit, and it feels both sort of intimate and sort of haunting, and also makes you strain your eyes a little bit to see him, which does kind of fit with what's happening here in the story that he's telling. It's really sort of melancholic. So yeah, beautifully done. What an unusual video, and really creative as well. It's like, it's interesting to tell a story this way. Anyway, thank you for sharing that with me. I really enjoyed that, and I hope I could add a little bit to your enjoyment of this video too. If you hadn't heard of REN before, maybe it's something that you like. I'm definitely gonna read a little bit more about him now. Like, I'm curious about everything that he was speaking of in this song. And it seems like he's quite, or has been quite, psychologically tormented. So yeah, that's seems like a very interesting musician. Hope you enjoyed this. There's more on my channels. I mean, it's a little bit more metal music, obviously, because that's kind of what we do here. But I got some other great videos for you to check out if that's what you're interested in. You can give me a subscribe here on YouTube if you want to see more. I also have a Patreon where I share exclusive videos, videos that got banned from YouTube, or some exclusive behind the scenes into my own work as well, and projects that I can't share yet, but, can share privately, which I do there. Let me know what you've been watching lately in terms of TV and movies that you have been enjoying. And if you have any recommendations for future reactions, I always love hearing all of that stuff and just chatting with you in the comments below. In the meantime, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.
Manage expectations, provide you perspective. That thing you neglected, I get it. You wanna be a big deal, next Jimi Hendrix, forget it.
Man, it's not like that.
Man, it's just like that, I'm inside you, you twat.
No, it's not, man, you're wrong. When I write, I belong.
Let me break the fourth wall by acknowledging this song. Ren sits down, has a stroke of genius. He wants to write a song that was not done previous. A battle with the subconscious, Eminem did it.